Welcome. You saw the video title, I don't know, maybe have a rough idea of what you're here for? I don't think there's any info on this game in the West, so maybe not actually. Let me explain what we'll be going over today. Rigid Memory is a Touhou horror fan game made by a sole dev named New, featuring both puzzle and action elements. It stars Miyako Yoshika, my favorite Jiangxi and the only one I actually know the name of offhand, and features a few other characters too, notably Kaku Seiga. However, it's less of a fan game set in the Touhou universe, and more of a game with its own universe that just uses Touhou characters. If that sounds confusing, you'll see just what I mean later on. But suffice to say, Yoshika isn't a Jiangxi in this game, and Seiga's not a hermit that can pass through walls either. Horror is a genre that we tend to not get too many fan games of. Third Eye is probably the one that's most well known, and for good reason considering its really distinct style. As of right now, Rigid Memory is New's only horror game. I haven't actually played any of his other games, but at a glance it looks like he usually does RPGs and adventure games. However, New's projects aren't really known in the English-speaking Touhou community outside of one of them, and that's Yuuji Teki no Yukarin, or roughly Carefree Yukarin. That game released on Steam in September of 2021 to quite the positive reception, even in the West. Around this time, I actually reached out to New myself regarding a translation of both his Yuka game and Rigid Memory, but I never got a response back. However, shortly after that, he publicly stated that he wasn't accepting translation offers. So, at least for the time being, we're stuck with all of his games being in Japanese, well, save for his Yuka game's funny-sounding machine translation. Just a quick warning before we get into the video itself, though this may not come as a big surprise, we're covering a horror game today, and those can often get a little graphic. You'll see some sprites of mutilated human and non-human bodies, meaning yes, there's going to be some bloodshed today. There are a couple quote-unquote jump scares in the game, but there's no full-screen ones or anything like that. In fact, there's only one piece of CG in the entire game. And though it's definitely creepy, it actually fades onto the screen and comes with some warning beforehand anyway. News art can also tend to get a little, bouncy at times, but there are no naughty bits actually displayed in the game. The game itself is also devoid of any suggestive themes, as long as we exclude this one NPC who just can't help but comment on the size of Yoshikas. Real quick before we do the video, I'm going to do the YouTuber thing and give myself a quick plug. I accept donations over on Patreon and Ko-fi, and besides videos like the one you're watching now, these donations help me bring actual full translations of fan games to English-speaking players. I've translated over a dozen Touhou fan games so far, many of which were official translations where I got to work directly alongside developers, and all without charging said devs a single penny. Donating $5 or more to me on either platform gets your name in every open translation project I'm working on, and Patreon supporters specifically also get their names read out at the end of these videos. Any help you can send my way to make what I'm doing more sustainable would be greatly appreciated. With all that out of the way, let's see what Rigid Memory has to offer. If the footage you've seen during this intro is enough to get you interested, I encourage buying the game and using my video to help guide you through it. You can purchase the game from the booth link in the description below, and if you do end up playing along like this, let me know how your playthrough went. Our story begins with Yoshika waking up in a bed in a dark room, unable to remember why she's there. She gets up and decides to look around to see if she can find anyone else. We try to leave the room so we can look around and see why we're here, but the exit door seems to be locked. Yep, this is a horror game, alright. With no other choice, let's take a look around the room. The lock on the door is an electronic one, so let's check the computer and see if it'll be of any use. Well, maybe it would be if we could log in. When examined, it prompts us for a username. Putting in Yoshika doesn't work, so I guess this probably isn't our computer. Let's take a look at the other stuff in here. This whiteboard has 3 things written on it. First up is a list of unfamiliar names along with their tasks. Kaede has a meeting in conference room 3, Arisa is to report to upper management, Ryo has time paid off, Sakura is in charge of research for project 2, Nanase is to supervise something called number 8, and lastly, Mitsuki is in charge of handling a routine check and restock of the facility's equipment. Next up is a report from someone named Takizawa that I'll sum up real quick. He received info that while number 44 was eating, it attacked the personnel that escaped into the basement, so he went down to go look for it. 15 minutes later, he saw what he thought was number 44 down there, but it ran away. Later on, they find it dead in the boiler room. Its cause of death is still being looked into. The attacked personnel only suffered minor wounds, but they got a horrible infection. As of this report's writing, they're still being treated. And lastly, we have a notice about a routine password change. Whoever wrote this notice says that he, I can tell his gender from his choice of pronoun, has changed the password to the next holiday. He's looking forward to getting out of here and visiting the surface again as soon as possible. He also takes the time to remind everyone that the PC's username is written in English and not Japanese. Seems like they've been getting a lot of new hires that get this wrong. So, the writer says to stop typing his name in Japanese. On this desk, we find a nameplate with the syllables Saku written on it, but it cuts off after that. That doesn't really mean much of anything on its own with no context, but if we compare it to the names we saw listed on the whiteboard, it does match up with Sakurai. The only thing remaining worth checking is the calendar. It appears to have been last updated on Thursday, July 9th. We were just told that the password is the next holiday, so we'll have to read the calendar to find out when that is. Apparently due to reasons related to how printing worked back then, Japanese calendars traditionally print Sundays in blue and both Saturdays and holidays in red. How do you tell if Saturday is a holiday, you ask? Well, I don't know, it probably says so in the calendar, but we're playing a video game right now, so we only get numbers and colors. Anyway, since we expect that we can exclude Saturdays, the next weekday marked in red is the 16th. Now that we're done gathering info, let's go back to the PC. You've probably pieced together that the correct username for the PC is Sakurai, just because it came up twice. There's actually another hint though. You'd have to know some Japanese to figure this out, but there are actually only 2 male names on the whiteboard schedule, and the employee that wrote the password notice identified themselves with a male pronoun at the end. Furthermore, Ryo has time off, so if he wrote it, it wouldn't make sense for him to set the date to the next holiday. So even without the nameplate, by process of elimination, we can deduce that Sakurai is the correct name to put in here. I'll be honest though, I tried Takizawa, the guy who wrote the report about number 44, my first time through, just because I'm dumb. Looking back with some more info now though, I think he was making a report to Sakurai. However, getting stuck in this puzzle for a bit seems to be pretty common even for Japanese players. So anyway, we'll put in Sakurai for the username, and then when prompted, 0716 for the password. Once we've done this, the door opens right up. Let me stop here for a second to say that this is the hardest puzzle of the entire game by a long shot, and that it's not at all indicative of what the rest of the experience is going to be like. However, I wanted to cover it in detail anyway to kind of just contrast with the puzzles we'll be seeing later on. Upon leaving the room we woke up in, we come out into a hallway, and the first thing we see is this phone. This phone is the first of our many save points in rigid memory. This door over to the left is locked and requires a card key, so we'll have to check somewhere else instead. Moving down to the south, we find the mutilated corpse of a man whose face was clawed to death. Well, now we know for sure that something bad definitely happened here. The door to the southeast requires a card key too, but we can go through either of these ones at the end of the hall. Let's start off by going south. It looks like last time this room was used, some kind of presentation was taking place here. Let's take a look at what's written on the whiteboard.
Number 14. Sex, male. Age, years old. Personality, innocent, indiscriminate. His mood is gentle and like that of a baby, but he can't control his. He has no awareness of his, yet he tries to play anyway. While have 2 personnel constantly monitor him, they absolutely mustn't take their eyes off him. If he run away.
We've got one more entry as well.
Number 31. Sex, female. Age, 30 years old. Personality, unstable. Her actual age exceeds 30 years, but the result of her places her at the level of a teenager. She's a highly important, so protect her with the utmost care. She's incredibly wary of others, so ideally her personnel shouldn't be changed lightly, but in the emergency, new personnel will take over her care. She may, but absolutely do not approach her.
And at the south end of the room, we find a notepad.
This place really gives me the creeps. Everyone here is totally messed up in the head, but at least I've got a place to live. For one person to succeed, they need something to use as a stepping stone. That's what they are. That's all. That's just how the world works.
I'll let you make of that what you will. It looks like this path keeps going, so before moving further south, let's make a quick return to the room we skipped before. In this room, we find a bunch of beds with bloody sheets on them, seemingly covering something. They do move on occasion, but we're safe to pass on by. We find a handy flashlight at the far end of the room, but when we try to leave, the lights turn off. That's fine though, we can just go back to the left and turn on the breaker, then... oh. I see. Well, good news, I guess we're not alone anymore. With no other options left, let's continue back through the presentation room. Well, that's not concerning in the least. In the next room, we find what we can only assume to be number 14 from the cry we just heard. He's locked up, thankfully. The computer below has a log of his activity. Page 1 lists him as dormant other than making a vocalization at 10:30. Page 2, however, starts off with an incident at 11:30. While feeding him, the 2 personnel in charge mistakenly turn their backs to him at the same time. One of them is seriously injured and the other ends up dead. Half an hour later, as a result of the incident, number 14 is forcibly put into a comatose state. He wakes up 3.5 hours later, apparently a little excited, and that's where the records end. Going further into the room, there seems to be something in this potted plant. Upon checking it out, it turns out to be this place's level 1 card key. And then we hear a sound. It looks like number 14's come to the bars to say hi. Anyway, it looks like we'll need a higher level card key for the door in this room, so we're going to have to retrace our steps for now. The northwest door in the corridor we first came out in won't open with this card key either, but the southeast one will. The computer in here reveals that this is number 31's room. The entire first page of her activity log is nothing but her stabbing the floor with a fork. At 22:30, she moves to the southeast corner of the room, then stops moving. 30 minutes later, she begins repeating something quietly under her breath. Whoever wrote this suspects it may be a name. 30 minutes after that, she stabs her fork into her left arm. However, her injuries are deemed to be within acceptable boundaries. She quickly regenerates and is found to be in good health as usual, whatever that means. Exploring further, we find a journal on a nearby cardboard box.
May 12th. As of today, I'm in charge of watching number 31. Why do I always get the worst jobs? This thing's dangerous and mentally unstable. Creepy to look at, too. I'm gonna make sure to not approach without caution. May 19th. This crazy girl killed one of my coworkers today. Apparently, after leaving her food, they were in a hurry to get out of her cell and ran. It's their fault for not reading the manual. You're never supposed to run in her room.
Number 31's inside her cell, stabbing the floor as usual. We've got nowhere else to go, so we'll have to unlock it and go inside. Since I'm sure someone out there is curious, let's immediately try doing the wrong thing. Yeah, if you run in her cell, that happens to you. Inside her cell, we find a corpse with a ton of small stab wounds in his throat. Looks like he died a long, painful death. And nearby, we'll find the level 2 card key. Number 31 does seem a little perturbed that it's taking it, but we are able to leave without further incident as long as we follow the rules on our way out. Not even our fancy level 2 card key is enough for the northwest door, so we'll have to put it on the back burner again. That just leaves the door in number 14's room, so let's... Oh. Well, we didn't have anything left to do in there anyway. As expected, our card key works on the last remaining door. Number 14 appears shortly after and begins chasing us. This is all that happens if you get caught, by the way. But as long as you keep running left, you'll be fine. Afterwards, Yoshika says she feels a breeze coming from the west, so we head that way in hopes of getting out of here and finding someone. Number 14 gets cozy with the bars again as we try to leave, but that's okay because we're out here and he's in there and we're the Jiangshi. Heading up the ladder at the end of the hall brings us out in a bathroom stall of all places. The object on the floor here is a key item that lets us change some performance-related settings. You know, just in case we're playing in Windows 95 and can't run RPG Maker games at full FPS. I open the extra door because I'm a good horror protagonist, but there's nothing inside. Outside the bathroom, we find a dead man with one of his arms ripped off. Of far more interest, though, is this beeping thing next to him on the ground.
Huh? What's this beeping thing? Some kind of machine?
I got through. That voice, is that you, Yoshika?
Whoa! What's going on? I'm hearing a voice all of a sudden.
Thank goodness, we're past the scheduled contact time, so I was worried that something might have happened. Is he safe, Yoshika? I'd like to hear his report, so put him on.
I've got no clue what you're talking about.
Huh? There isn't a man there? The one that came to get you? He was supposed to use that communicator to call me once he found you. Isn't that what happened?
Well, this guy on the ground? He's dead. I just found this thing next to him.
Oh, so he did run into trouble then, the poor soul. Still, at least I was able to get in touch with you, Yoshika. I think I can make do with this.
You've been saying Yoshika this, Yoshika that, but who's Yoshika? Are you talking about me?
Oh goodness, Yoshika. I know it's been a little while, but you've already went and forgotten your own name, have you? Yes, your name is Yoshika, and I'm Seiga, your friend.
Oh, really? I don't remember any of that, but I'm glad to be able to talk to a friend.
I see your honest nature hasn't changed. But we gotta save this reunion for later, Yoshika. I want you to listen carefully. Something really bad has happened in your current location. Right now, each and every second matters. I'd take too long to explain everything, and even worse, it'd just get you confused, so the details will have to come later. For the time being, I'd like you to do as I say to help resolve the situation. Your job will be difficult and fraught with danger, but you're the only one capable of doing anything right now.
I don't really get it, but got it. I've just gotta follow your orders, right?
Oh my, Yoshika, I just adore that pure, unblemished heart of yours.
Seiga goes on to give us some directions. We're told to head south until we reach the city, then continue southward to a park, and there we'll find a public restroom. That public restroom, for the time being, is apparently our goal. In addition, we're told that we can press Q at any time to speak with Seiga. One quick note, there were a couple choices in this conversation, but they were just fluff. None of the dialogue choices in this game influence the ending or anything else significant. We'll talk about endings much later on. On our way to the park, we'll start encountering NPCs. For anyone not in the know, New really likes using chickens as NPCs in his games. I couldn't tell you why. Most NPCs don't have anything too interesting to say, but this one here does have some helpful info for us. He tells us that blue auras indicate that someone is safe to approach, but that red and purple signify danger. No clarification given what the difference between red and purple is though. This red demon guy also tells us that he saw some strange girls who met at the park. Anyway, let's head into the public restroom Seiga told us about. I open up the extra doors because I'm a good horror protagonist, but there's nothing inside. The last one appears to have a passcode locking it, but we don't know it. Upon giving Seiga a ring, she tells us that the passcode is 1605. Sure enough, entering that opens the door and gives us access to another ladder leading into a spooky lab. What is it with this city and putting passages to spooky labs in their bathrooms? After descending into Spooky Lab number 2, which in universe is actually called Spooky Lab number 4, we'll get another call from Seiga. She gives us our next set of instructions. This time, she wants us to look around for a computer with some critical info on it. Thankfully, we're told that this lab is smaller than the last one. Judging by the blasted off doors leading inside, though, it might not be much safer. Heading inside, we immediately find a dead researcher with his face gravely injured. We're able to scan our card key to gain entrance to the room to the west, but unfortunately the monster inside blocks our path, so we're unable to head any further in. The door at the top has a disabled card reader that we need a special administrator's key to unlock. Our only choice is to head east, but on the way there, we can read this notepad next to a corpse with its neck snapped.
I don't want to die. Save me, please. I don't want to die in a place like this. I don't want my life to end while it's still boring. If I'd known this was going to happen, I would have chosen to chase my dreams. You never know when your life's going to end. I wish I'd realized that sooner.
That was just, my cat making noise in his sleep. Yeah. The whiteboard inside the room to the east has some info about something called NB3 gas. To sum it up quickly, it's used to get dangerous situations under control. It forcefully stops your body's cells from working, and just a few seconds of it will make you pass out. 30 seconds will make your heart and lungs stop, and 4 minutes will be enough to cause death. I don't know though, I think 30 seconds might be enough to cause death unless you happen to have a defib handy. The instructions say that clearance level 5 and above is needed to disseminate the gas, and that as soon as the target has been subdued, it should be stopped. We're currently unable to pass through this door because the gas is being administered beyond it. All that's left in here then is this computer. Unfortunately, calling Seiga here will result in her telling us that this is the wrong one, meaning that no, our job isn't done yet. Examining the computer tells us that what lies beyond the door is a corridor separating this room from another one, and we're given the choice to disable the gas. We don't exactly have anywhere else to go, so I guess that's what we're going to do. Past the corridor, we find, well, this thing, along with a bunch of confinement cells. But fortunately for us, as long as we don't bother it, it won't bother us. Exploring the open cells, we find a journal at the lower left.
May 30th. Our research is paying off more and more by the day. What we're doing here is certainly inhumane, but if you look at it in the long term and consider the history of humanity, it's clear that someone, somewhere, has to do it. You could say that we, too, are sacrifices to further humanity. We definitely are. We have to be. If I didn't think that, there's no way I could keep this up. June 2nd. It's nice that we're getting the results we wanted, but I'm concerned with their outward appearance. Why do they always morph into something so hideous? Even if these are our desired results, there's no way I can call that a success. Plus, we haven't fixed the problem with their intelligence deteriorating. We still got a lot of work left to do. June 8th. There's some sort of ruckus among the top brass. It sounds like an experiment's managing to more or less maintain its human form as it grows. I'd like to see it with my own eyes. If this succeeds, we'll be one step closer to our goal.
North of the journal, we find the administrator's key that we'll need to access the room to the north of the main chamber. So, let's grab that, then get out of here. Yeah, we'll need to turn the gas back on if we want to get out of here alive. Also, for the morbidly curious, after passing the trigger that makes the monster enter the corridor and die, you can toggle the gas back off, then enter the corridor yourself to see its corpse. The room to the north houses a bunch of capsules, but what's this? There's something absolutely disgusting in this one. Oh, and I think a Metroid broke out of this one or something. Checking the computer will prompt Yoshika to call Seiga, who confirms that we found the right one. She tells us that in order to get the info, we have to log in as an administrator, so she gives us her username and password. Her username contains her name, and her password contains ours, meaning that in some capacity or another, we must have both been part of this messed up operation. Seiga controls the computer remotely once we're in, grabbing all the info she needs.
So that's what caused all this. It's just as I expected.
Seiga, were the people here your friends?
My friends?
I mean, you seem to know a lot about this place, right? You know what it is, right? So you know the kind of stuff they're doing here too, right?
Yes, I suppose so. I'm connected to them in the sense that we were part of the same group doing the same work. I know what you're getting at, Yoshika. By now, I think you probably have an inkling as to what's happening here. But please, don't get the wrong idea. The things we were doing weren't evil. Furthermore, the city ending up like this was due to an unforeseen accident. We didn't want this to happen either. Right now, we're working to fix the mistakes that caused this. And in order to accomplish that, above all, Yoshika, I need your help. Will you give me your trust and cooperation until this is all over?
Yeah, okay. I'll trust you, 'cause you're my friend.
Thank you, Yoshika. You really are the best friend I could ever ask for.
Seiga finishes what she has to do in the computer, then tells us to head back to the surface. In the meantime, she's going to sort through the info she collected. You know, now that I think about it, I guess we're the monster that pops up out of the last bathroom stall. But hold on, it looks like someone else is vying for our position. Anyway, after making it back to the surface with relatively little incident, we get another call from Seiga. She got some really useful data from that PC. In particular, one thing really stood out to her, records pertaining to a vaccine. Nobody on her end knew anything about this, and they're all in an uproar about it at the moment. However, she's afraid that research on the vaccine may have stopped before it could be completed, but it's an important enough possibility that she decides to send us to investigate further. We're told to head to the northeast corner of the city. There, we'll find an old clinic at the end of a wooded road. That's apparently where the vaccine was being researched, so assuming it was completed, that's where it would be stored. Before we move on, I want to show off one of these maps. You can find a few of these around the city. Our current location is marked with this red star. These maps reveal that we're in Lacor City, and that our next destination is the Yagokoro Clinic, which is located here at the upper right, just like Seiga said it would be. On top of the red ore guys we've already seen, the city also has a few of these freaky purple ore guys just kind of sitting around, menacingly. Just as we were warned, approaching them gives the game over too. In the woods, we find a corpse with claw marks all over its throat and a notepad nearby. I'll sum this one up quick. This man's been working as a reporter for 30 years, but curiosity kills the cat, and unfortunately for him, coming to Lacor City for a scoop may have not been the best idea. He manages to fend off monsters for a while and reaches the forest, but runs out of gas. That car we passed by must have been his. The wounds the monsters inflicted on him are beginning to hurt more and more. By the time he writes his third entry, he can't stop vomiting, and his wounds have turned a weird color. By the time he writes his fourth entry, he can't even form proper words anymore, and that's where his notes stop. Anyway, let's head into the clinic. We hear the sound of a sliding door as we approach, but that's not at all suspicious. Absolutely no need to be alarmed, nothing bad happens in rigid memory. There are a few doors to check inside the clinic. We'll start on the right, then work our way back to the left. As it just so happens, the door on the right leads to a bathroom. I open up the extra door because I'm a good horror protagonist, but there's nothing inside. Behind door number 2, though, is a mutilated corpse. Lucky find. This guy has a journal at his feet. This is another one that I'll just sum up quick. In his first entry, this guy complains that even though the clinic's totally booked for the day, he hasn't seen the doctor around anywhere. Eventually, he suddenly just kind of appears out of nowhere and says that he was busy minding the garden. Our writer says that the doctor's always been like this. He disappears and reappears like some sort of ghost. On the 7th, he's been assigned cleaning duty for the first time. He goes to clean a bathroom that doesn't normally get used, but gets yelled at by the doctor. Apparently, that bathroom is off limits and doesn't need to be cleaned. Like, it aggressively doesn't need to be cleaned. He admits that it's his own fault for not reading the manual, but did the doctor really have to get that mad? Just to clarify something real quick, this clinic probably had more than one doctor. The man being referred to here is actually referred to as the director in this journal, but elsewhere he's referred to as sensei, which is commonly used to refer to doctors. Throughout the rest of this video, I'll be calling him the Doctor, just to keep things concise and easy to follow. As we finish reading and go to leave, we hear a noise to our right. It seems that something must have come out of this locker while we weren't looking. Thankfully though, that means that we can get our hands on the exam room key that was left behind. Heading back out into the clinic's entryway, the second door from the right is locked and apparently just leads to a hallway. The one on the far left though is open. Heading through it brings us to a small hallway with the exam room at the end, which we just so conveniently happen to have the key for. Inside we find another person, of all things.
There's someone here. Hello? Can you understand me?
Hello?
Whoa! You're totally covered in blood, lady! What happened? Are you hurt?
No, I'm perfectly fine.
Oh, you don't look fine, but okay.
So, what business have you come for? Are you not feeling well?
Nah, I'm not hurt or anything. I'm glad to finally see another living being, though. I thought this city's people were totally donezo.
The city's people? What happened to them? Is there some sort of illness going around?
Huh? I mean, come on, just look around. There's not a single living person out there.
You're an interesting one. I'd love to sit down for a long talk with you someday. But anyway, what are you here for? Do you know the doctor?
Oh, I'm here to look for this medicine thing called a vaccine. My friend told me it was being studied here, so this had to be where it was kept.
I see. So you're here for the vaccine then? Okay, I have a grip on the situation. Normally, the doctor would meet you personally for this sort of thing, but strangely, the doctor's whereabouts are unknown at the moment. Therefore, I'll handle this myself instead.
So you've got it here? Nice! Good thing I came to check.
Wait here for a bit. I'll bring you back a sample.
Phew. She was kinda scary. But it looks like I'll be able to get what Seiga wants. Oh, yeah! I gotta tell her that I found another living human. Hey, Seiga! Can you hear me? I found a lady who's still alive.
You... what?
The clinic lady's still alive. She said some kinda weird stuff, but I could still talk to her.
That can't be. There shouldn't be any survivors left in the city. Not even one.
What?
It wouldn't be impossible if we were talking about somewhere separated from the surface, like one of the labs, but there can't possibly be any survivors in the clinic. It's too close to the city.
But I saw her. She was alive and walking around. She even talked to me.
Where is this woman now?
She left the room to go get the vaccine.
Yoshika, I want you to follow her immediately. I have to speak with her.
But she told me to wait here.
We have no guarantee that we can believe what she's told you. Besides, something seems strange. Please contact me as soon as you find her. I'll talk to her directly through your communicator.
Okay, got it.
After a lengthy cutscene, we grab this key on the bed because Yoshika is a kleptomane. Because we'll obviously need it to unlock a door somewhere. Come on, have you never played a horror game? Or even an RPG? Anyway, it's the hallway key, so let's go back and use it. It'll lead us to, surprise surprise, a hallway. The eastern door is busted and won't open, so we'll continue through the one to the west. After walking by another busted door, we end up at an off-limits bathroom. The off-limits bathroom. You know what that means, right? It's gonna be stinky. They don't clean it after all. We go inside, and I open up the extra doors because are you getting sick of this bet yet? Well, I'm getting sick of all these goddamn bathrooms, so we're in the same boat and it's sinking really quick. As you might have already guessed, the last stall leads to another ladder, which in turn leads to another spooky lab. This one wins the award for smallest lab, which is an award I didn't even know about until writing this video, but it's definitely a real thing, just trust me on this. And also, just like before, it appears their Metroid is no longer in captivity, and the city is no longer at peace. Let's read the journal at the bottom of the room.
March 8th. Another infected test subject was brought in today. I tried administering the vaccine we created yesterday, but it had no effect. They died approximately 1 hour later. However, we've gathered a lot of information since beginning our research. Success is within sight. April 11th. We finally made a successful vaccine. Upon administering it to a stage 2 test subject, their symptoms underwent rapid changes within approximately 7 minutes. Both their skin discoloration and growths began to revert. And even more surprising, we were able to confirm the existence of tissue containing antibodies. We arrived at this point much faster than expected. In other words, I should still be able to buy some more time. It wouldn't be smart to report the vaccine success right away. I'm choosing to keep quiet about it until absolutely necessary. As for why, it's because they'll keep sending research funds our way if they think our experiments are still ongoing. And even more importantly, I need more test subjects to help further the growth of my cute little pet. I need more patience.
Besides the journal, we can also check the computer for some more info. It seems to have some sort of experiment log open on it. Subject 1, a 51-year-old male who died of leukemia, and Subject 2, a miscarried fetus, are both reported as having no change. An 88-year-old man with dementia is labeled as successful. On the second page, a lab mouse is reported as having changes to some regions but incomplete. The same goes for the toy poodle below. The only success on page 2 is the Labrador at the end. Page 3 attempts to sum up these strange results for us. It says that with a body that possesses a good enough physique, and with living DNA, complete imitation is possible. However, memories aren't fully retained, and there may be a decline in IQ. Further testing with healthy human DNA will be necessary. So it seems that alongside their vaccine research, this lab, more specifically its doctor, was taking patients that came in and using them to further his own nefarious research into some sort of imitation experiment, whatever that means. Anyway, we didn't get anything from this lab outside of some info, so let's head back up to the clinic and see if we maybe missed something. Oh hey, look who it is.
Look who it is.
Found you.
Whoa! You scared me! Come on, lady, don't surprise me like that.
I heard a noise from over here. I didn't think there was anyone left. But here you are, another living person.
Hey, that's my line. Wait, I pretty much did say that earlier.
This way. Come this way.
Did you bring the vaccine sample? Where is it?
This way. Come this way.
You want me to follow you? Okay, sure.
Wait here. Stay in this room. I'll be right back.
Huh? I gotta wait again? I thought you already went to get the vaccine.
Wait here. Stay in this room.
Oh, yeah, I almost forgot. Seiga said she wanted me to call her when I found you. Hey, lady, before you go, use this to call my friend.
Your friend?
Yeah, this thing lets me talk to her. She always helps me out when I'm in trouble.
Help. That thing. Give it to me.
Sure, here you go.
That thing too. That shining thing.
My flashlight? What for?
That thing. Give it to me. Quickly. Give it to me.
Do you need it to look for the vaccine? I guess you can borrow it then. Hey, wait! I need you to call my friend with that communicator.
Wait here. Stay in this room. I'll be right back.
What's going on? She's not listening to a word I'm saying. Now what do I do? Whoa!
Don't leave. Stay in this room.
Oh, okay, I got it. I won't go anywhere. Just stop making that scary face at me.
I'll be watching.
That scared me. I guess that lady wasn't human after all. Aw, jeez. I gave her my communicator, so I can't even call Seiga for help. I don't think staying in here is a good idea, though. Isn't there some other way out?
With the door definitely being a no-go, the only option we've got left is to hop down into this hole in the floor. It's not going to bring us outside, but at least we're further away from Aaron now. There's a notepad in this room with some helpful information. Whoever wrote it saw a nurse devour their friend's corpse. They'd been under the impression that their friend had been killed by a monster in the city, but it seems that it had actually been the nurse's doing from the very beginning. Now, they're planning on making their escape before they're eaten next. They note that while it's obviously important to not let the nurse see them, this place has creaky floorboards, so running while close to her is also a bad idea. Let's start looking around for a way out then. The first door we encounter down here is a locked employee hallway, so it'll have to wait. Moving to the right, we... Oh. That was just me, measuring how good her ears were. Sneaking past her to the right will nab us the key to the morgue. Heading north will bring us to the morgue itself, so let's unlock and go inside. One uneventful trip into a room of dead, or maybe not dead bodies, I don't know, I'm not a doctor later. We have the key to the employee hallway and can double back to it. If Erin wasn't explicitly looking for us before, she's definitely on the hunt now. Yoshika, thinking quickly, automatically hides in a nearby locker. Here, the game's positional audio shines, letting us know that Aaron's passed and that we're safe to hop out. If we keep going, we'll find a locked door leading to exam room 2. Just as before, we'll have to sneak by Aaron. We'll need to use a locker of our own volition this time. You'll want to wait until she's a few steps past you before leaving. If you're impatient and try to leave too quickly, she'll just hear you and turn around. Inside exam room 2, we find our communicator lying on a bed.
Phew, I found my communicator. Hey, Seiga, can you hear me? Things aren't looking so good over here.
Trying to call for help?
Oh! What's going on? Why'd that lady's voice come through? Why is she talking through my... Hey, wait a second! This isn't the one I was using! This was a trap! This isn't good. Now she knows I'm here. I've got to get out of here quick!
This way. Come this way. I won't let you run. You'll end up like her.
Well, what's your deal? What are you gonna do to me? Ah! What's that thing? I'm out of here.
We retreat down a hall that leads to a dead end, but there's a pistol on the floor. Yoshika picks it up without hesitation, and you're given an in-the-field tutorial for this game's symbol gun combat as you take down the hulking mass of flesh and eyeballs. We are finally out of danger, at least for now. To sum up the gun controls real quick, after taking out your gun with A, you fire with Z, reload with S, and holding shift lets you change your aim. While not holding shift, you'll slowly strafe while holding your gun out in front of you. The corridor Aaron chased us down is totally in shambles now, so the only way we can go is south. There just so happens to be a computer in the room below, so let's take a look at it.
I need healthy human bodies, but we're getting nothing but elderly patients. We finally had a young man come in just recently, but his chronic illness had made him weak. I won't be able to perform any experiments like this, meaning I won't be able to move on to the next step. I've only got so much time to do this. It feels a little wasteful, but I'm going to use this young woman that we hired as a part-time nurse the other day. Depending on how things go, I may have to dispose of the original, but that's just how things have to be. Besides, if I succeed at achieving full imitation, I'll be able to enjoy her in a different way. It's time to start planning.
On our way out of the clinic, we encounter a few idle enemies blocking us, but each can be taken out with just 2 shots. We'll start finding ammo pickups now too. Don't worry about reloading before using up a full clip, by the way. It won't result in you wasting bullets or anything.
So this is where you were.
Whoa! What? Why are you?
I grabbed the vaccine sample and returned to where I left you, but you were gone. Come now, you can't just wander the clinic like that.
So, you're not that thing from just now?
Excuse me?
You attacked me. You turned into this white eyeball monster and chased me around.
I see. So it was still lurking around here then. The doctor's pet has caused us our fair share of problems, too. I apologize for the trouble.
Pet?
Anyway, I brought the sample I spoke of. Here you are. This is the only vial of the vaccine that was completed. Please handle it with the utmost care.
Oh, the vaccine. Thanks, lady.
Also, I found this on the floor. Did you drop it?
Oh, my communicator. I'm not letting you go anywhere this time, little guy.
I'm relieved to have been able to perform my duties. Now, I too can finally go to where I belong. Goodbye.
Hey, hold on. I'm gonna call Seiga, so wait just a sec. Hey, Seiga, can you hear me?
Oh, I got through? Yoshika, is that you? What have you been doing this whole time? You haven't called in ages and you weren't answering. I was worried something happened to you.
It's a long story. More importantly, I found that nurse. I'll put her on now. Huh? What? Oh, where'd she go? She's gone.
What's wrong, Yoshika? Is everything okay?
Well, I thought I killed that lady, but then she appeared again. Then she disappeared. That's really weird. She was just here a second ago.
I'm lost, Yoshika. Slow down and explain from the beginning.
Seiga's records offered no help as to what we just went through, so she's at a loss for an explanation too. She is glad that we found something to protect ourselves with though. She tells us that she has to talk things over with her peers and that she'll get back to us soon when they decide on what to do next. Heading outside will prompt another call. It sure didn't take them long to deliberate on that. Anyway, Seiga wants us to find a computer for her to access remotely, just like before. However, she doesn't actually know where it is yet. She lets us know that she'll contact us again after pinpointing its location. Yoshika says that in the meantime, she'll just wander around the city. Seiga takes the chance to warn us that the lifeform that's thought to have caused all this may be lurking nearby. The data that we were able to recover for her confirmed that said lifeform escaped from wherever they were being held. However, it's been over a month since the incident occurred, so the odds of running into this thing are pretty low, but she wanted to tell us just in case. All she knows about the lifeform is that it was being researched in secret, meaning no records remain. Yoshika's confident that she'll be okay with her gun though. What a cute little monster hunter she is. Looks like that reporter we saw earlier turned into a monster. Poor guy. On our way out of the woods, this NPC stops us to compliment our pistol. However, he warns us that monsters with purple auras are immune to bullets, finally explaining the reason for the difference in color. After wandering for a bit, we suddenly hear a phone ring. Following the sound reveals that it's the park's payphone, so let's go check it out.
Hello? I'm Mary. Huh? Who? Right now, I'm in the city. You are? I don't know who you are, but you should probably get out of here. Or are you stuck and can't escape? Do you want help? Huh? Hello?
Right after that strange call, we hear back from Seiga. She tells us that the computer we're looking for is in the school on the west side of the city. She warns us that this trip might be a little riskier since the school is inside the city, unlike the clinic, but she tells us that it's the last job that she has for us. Yoshika says she'll do it, but before ending the call, she asks Seiga if this Mary is a friend of hers, and explains what just happened. Seiga says that she doesn't know any Marys, and proposes that it was just a prank call made by someone outside the city. See, there's this sort of creepy Japanese half-folktale, half-chain email story about this doll named Mary. I won't get into the details here, but search up Mary-san if you want more info. If you played one specific Touhou game, you might already know where this is going, but don't go spoiling it for those not in the know. So, our last destination is the school, but there's a problem. See, these purple aura guys are blocking the way, and we don't have any way of dealing with them. We'll have to look around the city for a solution. We've got a gun now, so why not see if there's anywhere we can apply it? First off, are these enemies blocking an alleyway near the school? These guys take 4 shots to take out and will actually inch towards you once aggroed. Eliminating one lets us talk to this NPC, who helpfully tells us that if we're ever low on bullets, we'll be able to find some if we check inside a phone booth. There are other various places where the game will spawn bullets if we get low too. It's pretty careful to not let us soft-lock ourselves, though I can't say I've really tried to test its limits. Anyway, while that's certainly nice info to have, it won't help us get into the school. What we'll have to do is head over to a similar alleyway on the east side of the city to find this corpse with his face torn off. Seems like this guy managed to escape whichever of the city's various labs he was working in, but a monster got his leg on the way out, and it's starting to burn pretty badly. He thinks he remembers parking his car at the convenience store, but he clearly didn't make it that far. We can find the key to his car next to his body. Heading over to the local 811 located at the north edge of the city, we find the man's gaudy orange car and are able to borrow it for ourselves. While driving, we can safely run over anything hostile, or friendly, without any consequences whatsoever. And of course, by using our new toy, we're able to gain access to the school. By the way, if you manage to get stuck somewhere and need your car to get out, you can enter a phone booth and, remember, where you parked it in order to move it to your location. I'm not sure that's how it works, but I don't drive, so maybe this is some sort of extra you can get for your car nowadays. You know, like heated seats. The eastern door inside the school is locked and leads to the gym. The other door up front leads to the western school building. Our only valid path forward is down this hall blocked by a monster, so we'll have to shoot it and pass on by. After that, we end up in what looks like a faculty room. There's a corpse with a bunch of bite marks inside and a notepad lying nearby. It mentions that the monsters in this school regenerate after being taken out with a gun, but even though they don't die, they do leave the school after being shown force. In other words, we shouldn't have to worry about monsters coming back if we leave the school. There's a computer in this room too, but it's unfortunately not the one that Seiga is looking for. But let's read what the journal on it has to say regardless.
June 12th. We've had an increase in students staying home from school lately. On top of that, they have the same symptoms, dizziness and itchiness all over. However, neither of those are serious enough that they can't attend school. This may seem harsh, but it'll be a problem if the students go into the habit of taking days off, so let's be strict with them on this. June 15th. Within just a few days, my class went from having one student who displayed symptoms to over half. It feels like it spread from the student who initially displayed symptoms. The situation feels a little strange. This may be some sort of airborne virus that spreads like a nasty flu. I say that because though it may be my imagination, I think I've been feeling a little dizzy lately too.
We find the West School building key nearby as well. As we head out of the room, this conspicuously placed phone begins to ring. It's Mary again, and this time she says she's near the clinic before hanging up. Once in the West School building, we ignore the busted door near the entrance and carry on to find a notepad.
Investigation Report 1. As our info indicated, any healthy young males or females that apply get accepted immediately. The reason for this is that their recruitment's real goal has been to acquire test subjects from the very start. But it's no surprise that nobody suspected them of anything. After all, they used a well-known and powerful medical institution as their public face, which...
And the rest is illegible. Upon moving forward, we can hear yet another phone ringing. We can head left through this door into a classroom to check it out. Yoshika knows what's up by now and immediately asks if it's Mary on the other end. She asks her to stop playing around and tell her what this is all about, but all she does is update us on her position and hang up. She's supposedly in front of the park now, meaning she's closer than she was before. Nearby, we can also find the follow-up to the report we just read.
Investigation Report 2. Who was brought in as a girl who appears to be in her teens. They no doubt intend to use her as a test subject, despite nobody in their right mind being capable of making such a decision. And most shockingly of all, her blood sister was the one who elected to be in charge of.
And just like before, that's all we can read. We leave the classroom and head east past some monsters next. There's a locked door with a simple lock that we're unable to do anything with for now. There's also this purple guy that we're definitely not getting past, since it's not like we can fit our car in here. There's actually no way past this thing through normal means, though the dev has stated on Twitter that there's a room past it that went unused. In the room on the left, we find the final investigation report.
Investigation Report 3. Received an urgent report about an accident. Said accident took place in Lab 4, located under Lacor Park. That lab is located in the middle of the city, and not only houses a particularly troublesome test subject, but also carries the risk of transmitting a dangerous poisonous gas through the air, among other things. In other words, this is the worst place for an accident to occur, so its security should be very stable. However, something feels like it's not quite.
We also find a lockpick nearby. It'll work on that door that we passed, so let's go check it out. Turns out it's yet another bathroom. I don't open any of the extra doors because subverting expectations is funny. For the first time in the entire game, we find that the last stall doesn't lead to a spooky underground lab. Instead, it just has the key to the gym. On our way out, the lights turn off and we run into that thing that we saw in the other bathroom. Wonder if this thing travels through the sewers. You know, through Hazy Maze Cave. Anyway, we're totally fine as long as we leave quickly. While backtracking to the gym, Yeah, this is probably the most jump-scary moment in the game just because of the loud noise that accompanies it. React quickly, get out your gun, then shoot the one on the right 4 times and hurry along. Honestly though, these things are pretty sluggish, so you could probably react slowly if you're in that kind of mood today. Before we can get to the gym though, we get yet another call from Mary. She says she's in front of the school now. Yoshika asks if she's coming to see her or if she's coming to get help, but she's not ready to give us an answer quite yet. The gym itself is totally uneventful, but there's more stuff on the other side. Don't forget that we're here to find a computer, not to play basketball. Beyond the gym, we find the infirmary. Checking the computer confirms that this is the one that Seiga was looking for. We log in as a guest. This computer's not from lab after all, it's just a regular one used by the school staff.
Thank you, Yoshika. I was able to get all the data I needed.
Oh, done already?
Yes, that was all the work I needed you to do. Good work, Yoshika. And thank you, truly.
No problem. Glad I could help.
There's no longer any need for you to be in the city, so I'm gonna come pick you up.
Whoa! I'm gonna be able to meet you?
That's right. I can't enter the city itself, though, so let's meet up nearby.
Seiga tells us to leave the school, after which she'll call us again to set up the details of our meeting. But as nice as that sounds, we can't just ignore a ringing phone. I mean, maybe someone's calling to tell us we won something, or maybe there's a deal on window installations in our neighborhood.
Whoa! What's going on? Hello? Hi, Mary. I figured it was you. Are you in the school now? Right now. I'm right behind you. Boo! Oh! Don't move! Come any closer and I'll blow your head off. Why don't you hurry and pull the trigger then? Otherwise, you're gonna lose your head first. What's the matter? Come on! Huh? Stay back! Wow, you're a meanie. You actually shot me. Why? I'm sure that hit your head. Are you the same as me? Huh? You're walking around the city without issue. That means you must be a test subject, like me, right? What are you talking about? If you're a test subject, then play with me a little. You might actually be enough to satisfy me. Where'd she go? She disappeared out of nowhere. She said play. What did she mean by that?
Well, we wouldn't want to keep Mary waiting. Let's go meet up with her for our play date.
We'll have plenty of room to play here. What are we gonna do? I've got a friend waiting for me outside the city that I've got to go meet up with. Well, whether you'll be able to meet up with her safely is gonna depend on you. You might die here after all. The rules are simple. If you can shoot me a whole bunch with that gun you've got, you win. If you die, then I win. Hey, hold on now. You could kill me in a single swipe with those giant claws. I know. So don't worry. I'll go easy on you, so you can survive 2 or 3 swipes. Also, don't leave those white lines, okay? I want to see how well you'll be able to keep up with my movements in that limited space. Ugh, why is this even happening? Let's get started then. You better give me a good time. Damn it, I guess I've got no choice.
The fight with Koichi is simple. She'll appear on either your left or right, move up or down to match your position, then dash forward and attempt to swipe you. Dodge or swipe, then counterattack. You can get in 3 shots if you're quick, but I found 2 to be reliable and easy to pull off every time. Make sure to be careful when you reload since it leaves you open for a bit. If you game over here, you'll get the option to lower the difficulty, which gives you more time to shoot after Koichi misses, and also lets you survive an extra hit. If you run low on ammo, some will spawn at the top or bottom of the gym for you to grab. After being shot so many times, the screen will turn red and Koichi will do a string of faster successive swipes. She's invincible during this, so don't bother trying to shoot her during the brief window between her attacks. Just focus on dodging and she'll resume her normal pattern before long. You'll have to make it through a few of these red phases throughout the fight. Once you've landed a sufficient number of shots, Koichi will call the fight there.
Wow! I knew you'd be stronger than the others. You're like me, after all. Haven't I hit you enough to win yet? How long are you gonna keep this up? Yeah, I guess we've played enough. I'm glad I came back to the city again. I just had a feeling, you know? You're fine? After I shot you that much? Hey, just what are... Anyway, I'm satisfied, so I'm gonna get going now. You've gotta go meet up with your friend anyway, right? I'm glad I can meet someone else like me. Let's run into each other again sometime. See ya! Well, wait! Where are you going? To find my sister. Your sister? Yeah, she's the one who made me like this. So I'm leaving the city to kill her. And then I'm gonna slaughter all the people she's working with. That way, no more tragedies will happen. So, you make sure to survive too, okay? She's gone. She was nothing like the other monsters. Maybe she's not one of the bad guys.
We get a call from Seiga after Koichi leaves. Her calls haven't been going through for a while now, so she was worried that something happened to us. Yoshika says that she'll explain after they've met up. In order to rendezvous with Seiga, we're told to find the big road at the east edge of the city, then follow it straight south. It doesn't take too long to get there.
Good work, Yoshika. You were able to finish all the tasks I gave you and escape the city safely.
Whoa! So you're Seiga? I'm glad we could finally meet. I only got to hear your voice up until now. This is my first time actually seeing you. Nice to meet you.
Goodness, Yoshika. You actually already know my name, face, and how I look. You've just forgotten.
Huh? Really? I can't remember at all.
Yes, it's true. We both lived in this city together, you and I. That is, up until a few months ago. Then this incident went and tore us apart. You might have realized already, but there's a dangerous virus infesting the city right now, making it so humans can't enter. But you're special, Yoshika. That's why I asked you for help.
Oh, okay. But aren't you in danger here, Seiga? We're still pretty close to the city.
I suppose so, but there's something I couldn't do unless I came here myself.
What's that? More work?
Yes.
Seiga? Why? Ugh.
Yes, this is Kaku, Seiga.
It's me. Were you able to eliminate the target?
Yes. She just passed away.
I see. Well done. I know she wasn't all that dangerous, but it's better to eliminate every last one we can. And plus, she knew too much about us. We couldn't let her live with that knowledge.
I know.
Anyway, once you've recovered the vaccine from her, withdraw straight away. We'll resume the plan once you're back.
Yoshika.
And that's rigid memory. Well, the bad end at least. But if we work just a little harder, we can get a better end for Yoshika and Seiga. Let's think back to the various places we've explored. Is there anything we can do now that we couldn't do before? Go on, take a few seconds to mull it over. Did you figure it out? We're going to be heading back to the second lab we visited, the one at the park. This is the one where everything started, and the one where Koichi was originally held. The reason we're coming back here though is because there was a monster blocking this corridor that we couldn't get by previously. However, now that we've obtained Gun, we can. At the end of this path, we'll find the elusive level 3 card key. Thinking back on everywhere we've explored, there's just one electronic door that we could never get by, and it's back in the lab where we first woke up. Upon arriving back at the northern lab, we find that number 14 is still right where we left him. Tragically, in order to achieve a better end for our characters, we're going to have to give him a bad end. He takes 10 bullets in total to put down. If you come here without enough and waste what you've got, just leave and grab a refill from the nearby phone booth. After he's gone, there's nothing left to stand in our path, and we can return to the door that we couldn't open with our level 2 card key at the start of the game. Inside, we'll find a computer. However, just like the lab computers we've dealt with before, it requires login info in order to access. Hopefully, you noted down Seiga's username and password earlier in the game, because you'll need them again here. However, they're the exact same in every playthrough, so even if you couldn't predict the future, you could always just do what I did and watch a video to check them. In fact, hey, you're doing that right now. Once we're in, we gain access to Seiga's records. 7 of them to be precise. Strap in because we're going to be here for a while.
How many days has it been since I became involved with this organization? What was it that led me to start working here? Where did the resolve and passion in my heart that I had when I chose to walk the path of medicine and caregiving go? Where did I forget them? I can no longer remember, but there's no going back. Through willing means or not, once you become deeply entangled with this organization, you're not allowed to abandon your work partway. Each and every person working here is a prisoner. We've thrown away our daily lives, our happiness, and humanity, and simply keep our mouths shut and perform the tasks assigned to us. Even if those tasks are cruel and inhumane, everyone here knows that following our orders is the only way to survive here. I'm not sure if it was because of my poor performance, but upper management ordered for me to be transferred to a different task. My new job is to develop a virus capable of raising the dead. I'm the only one assigned to this task. This project has existed for a while now. However, its success rate has been low and too specific in nature. For an organization like ours that focuses on creating weapons, the power to raise the dead doesn't have all that much worth. I was assigned a low priority project that had been stopped midway through development. In other words, this is the organization's way of saying that I have no worth to them. The development of a practically meaningless virus. I continued to work on this project all alone, all while enduring cold stares from those around me. I repeatedly performed cruel experiments on the countless corpses brought to me. The things I'm doing are no different than the actions of everyone else here. However, the act of raising the dead involves calling a life back to this world. It'd be the same as saving a precious life. Compared to the research I've done up until now, this is medical treatment that can help humanity. I'm clinging on to my forgotten dreams and causing them to justify my actions. But if I don't, then I'm gonna lose myself. Today, one girl's corpse stood out from the other bodies that were brought to me. Being brought here means you were the test subject of a failed experiment. Most such bodies are grossly disfigured or have lost their limbs, but this girl doesn't have a single scratch on her. I'm thinking it was some sort of mistake that she was brought to the facility. I don't know the name, birthplace, cause of death, or background of the girl who lay in front of me. But while staring at her, I could feel the firm will to do something swelling up in my heart. I want to help her. I want to save her. Whether that feeling was pure, or whether I just wanted something to help justify my actions, I had no way to possibly tell at the time. It's been around 9 months since then. I succeeded in developing one specimen of the virus. Despite all the corruption and sacrifices, I abandoned my sense of self and continued doing my research. Now, I'm taking the girl who I've kept in cold storage this whole time and returning her back to the testing table once again. After opening her eyes, the girl looked around confused before settling her gaze on my face. At first, I was afraid that the fear she'd experienced before death would go wild in her mind. I was afraid that she'd be terrified about why she was here and alive after she'd already died. However, my fears were thrust aside as she slowly rised from the table and said, "Good morning," to me in a gentle voice. I don't think an eternity would be enough for me to forget those words. I haven't found any abnormalities in her body. She's exactly what you'd expect from a healthy teenage girl. However, she's experiencing some memory loss and a decline in mental capabilities. Perhaps her brain wasn't fully revitalized with the rest of her body. She doesn't remember where she came from or what kind of life she lived. The only thing she could remember was her own name, Yoshika. Yoshika is such a very energetic, very honest, and very gentle girl. I've lost my humanity and become so horribly corrupted ever since joining the organization and starting work here, yet Yoshika stays by my side with a smile. My heart has never felt so at ease before. Out of the long years I've spent doing and denying such rotten things, today, for the first time, I was finally able to feel gratitude toward my own actions.
Entry 5's data has unfortunately been damaged, so we're unable to read it. Let's move on.
I was unable to return due to the emergency. All facilities were ordered to undergo freezing in order to avoid further damage. I desperately explained Yoshika's existence to them. However, they didn't see her as a person and insisted that she was a secret test subject that belonged to the organization. So just like the other test subjects, she too underwent freezing. They won't be able to keep all the facilities frozen for long. I'm sure they'll hit their limit and the effect will wear off within a month or two max. I can't say for sure that the facilities will be safe from harm in the meantime, but she may be safer sleeping inside rather than being allowed to move about freely and put herself in danger. I just have to be patient for a bit. A single day has never felt so long before. It feels like each and every second gets engraved directly into my heart. All I've done is think of Yoshika and pray that she's safe. My ravaged heart is unable to forget the warmth of the short yet beloved time I spent with Yoshika, and all I can do is pitifully and fruitlessly continue to hope. Yoshika possesses antibodies thanks to the virus's effects. Thanks to those antibodies, she should be safe to walk around the infected city. But even so, Yoshika's no weapon, nor is she a tool. Are they seriously trying to trample over the one thing that brings me joy and hope I found after all this time?
This page's data is lost too, so let's move on.
I can't do it. There's no way I could do that. They want me to dispose of Yoshika right at the last moment, once she's finished her duties? Who in their right mind would do that? How can they even be in a state of mind that lets them think like this? The organization wants me to show my loyalty, do they? Well, I either threw it away ages ago, or maybe I never even had any in the first place. No matter how much it pains me, no matter how much I fight them on it, it's been decided that Yoshika will be disposed of. If I refuse to do it, they'll just have someone else carry out her execution instead. In which case, the least I can do is dirty on my own hands. This is my final punishment. It's what I get for living so selfishly before now. Forgive me, Yoshika.
That info is what we came back here for. With no other business remaining in the city for real this time, let's go see our friend once more.
Oh, okay. But aren't you in danger here, Seiga? We're still pretty close to the city.
I suppose so, but there's something I couldn't do unless I came here myself.
What's that? More work?
Yes.
It's okay. Go ahead and shoot.
What?
You've got to dispose of me now that everything's over, right?
Yoshika, how do you...
It's fine, Seiga. You can't go back to the others unless you shoot me. So go ahead.
I can't just...
I'm happy, Seiga. I learned just how hard you'd worked for my sake. So I'm not gonna hate you if you shoot me. If I'm gonna die anyway, I at least want to die by your hands, Seiga. So go on. Pull the trigger. Seiga?
I'm so stupid. I only thought of myself and what I was told to do, but I never thought how you felt, Yoshika. I'm sorry, Yoshika. You already left this world once, but my own greed made me drag you back, and now I tried to selfishly erase your life a second time with my own hands. Lives aren't meant to be played with like they're toys. I'm no different than they are.
Don't cry, Seiga. I'm not bothered by any of the stuff you did to me. You saved me. I'm really happy I was able to meet you. So, don't apologize. Heck, I've been wanting to thank you this whole time. Thanks, Seiga, for saving me. I'm really glad you did.
Yoshika.
That's your communicator. Don't you gotta take that?
No, it's fine. I've opened my eyes now. Let's go, Yoshika.
Huh? Go? Go where? To see your friends?
Of course not. I'm never going back to them.
But doesn't that mean...
It's fine. I've already made up my mind. I'm gonna live my life with you, Yoshika. No matter what hardships we face, we can overcome them together. This is the choice given to me. And this is the new path I've been wanting this whole time.
Oh, okay. So we'll be together when we die.
Goodness, Yoshika. You're straightforward even at the strangest of times. Let's hurry along then. Staying around here for too long would cause all sorts of problems.
You know where we're headed?
We'll decide that together. We're free to go wherever we want after all. So, I look forward to our future together, Yoshika.
Of course! I'll be by your side forever, Seiga!
With that, our protagonists set off toward an uncertain future. Surely they'll be okay if they're together, though. So, Rigid Memory's plot left a lot of things uncertain, but let's discuss a few things real quick anyway. I'd like to make one thing clear, though. I'm not Mr. Game Theory. I definitely don't claim to have all the answers. I just like thinking about how the different parts of a game fit together, and I especially like poking holes in things. My thoughts here are going to be a bit rambly. Okay, actually they're going to be very rambly, but I'm going to begin by going over what we know about how the incident began. We have 3 pieces of evidence related to this. First off is Seiga's warning about a dangerous life form that caused all this. Second, Investigation Report 3 tells us about an accident that occurred in Lab Number 4, located under Lacor Park. And lastly, an NPC in Lacor Park recounts seeing a strange girl leaving the park. This evidence, of course, tells us that Koichi is responsible for the incident, but you probably suspected as much if you were paying attention. It seems that her breaking out was what caused the labs to be frozen and abandoned. So Koichi triggered the incident in some form or another, and the lab under Lacor Park is where she came from. It's not really that big of a stretch to say so, since it's where we found the records she wrote, but I believe that Seiga did her work in the lab north of the city. This lab being the one where Yoshika wakes up also strongly points toward this being the case. Let's stop here and theorize a bit about how the computers we interact with in this game work. For one, they definitely have internet access, otherwise Seiga wouldn't be able to control them remotely. The data we help her retrieve throughout the game is stored locally. If that weren't the case, then accessing one computer would be enough to access them all. It appears that the computers in the various labs have remote access software that's set up to allow for unattended access. What this means is that as long as the computer is on and unlocked, someone with that computer's access ID and password can control it remotely at any time. All that Yoshika does when opening up the computers for Seiga is unlock them so she can control them remotely herself. One question that arises when trying to break down how the PCs and networking work is this: why does Seiga's login info work for two different PCs in two different labs? What I theorize really happened here is that since Seiga's helping resolve the incident by having Yoshika travel around the city, the organization's higher-ups temporarily upped her permissions and gave her the ability to log into all their systems. I'm not super knowledgeable when it comes to network security, but this at least sounds plausible to me. But wait, aren't we forgetting some computers? Seiga's login info doesn't work on the PC in the room that Yoshika wakes up in. We explicitly have to use Sakurai's login info there. In fact, this box has a shorter character limit, so we can't try Seiga's info even if we wanted to, and I did want to just to see what would happen. But okay, sure, let's say that this PC is isolated from the network for whatever reason. But isn't it also strange that Seiga can remote access into the PC in the school? It doesn't seem to belong to the organization at all. They don't have a lab there, and we log in as just a guest. Your guess is as good as mine as to what crucial info Seiga actually retrieves from this PC too. But we find various reports around the school from someone who seemed to be investigating the organization. So perhaps they had a mole in their midst that worked at the school, and Seiga was ordered to send Yoshika into the school so they could find data revealing their identity. That would at least explain why we find the investigation records in an elementary school of all places. Maybe the mole also managed to somehow connect the PC to the organization's network, explaining how Seiga is able to access it remotely once we're logged in. You'd think that the mole would lock whatever data Seiga is looking for behind more than a guest account, but hey, no theory is perfect. I'm just kind of grasping at straws here, to be honest. It's also kind of a mystery why the last few records written by Seiga are even available in the PC in her lab in the first place. At the start of entry 6, she says she couldn't return to the lab due to the emergency, so where was she when she wrote that entry and the next one, and why did they end up on the lab's PC? Remote syncing, maybe? I guess they're more akin to a private journal rather than records belonging to the organization itself, so that's not totally implausible. I bet her superiors would be a bit upset if they found that she'd hooked up her iCloud to her work PC though. Okay, let's change gears for a moment. Seiga herself wasn't responsible for the incident, right? We have strong evidence pointing towards Seiga's post being in the northern lab at the time of the incident, and she also claims to not know anything about Koichi, so unless we're willing to totally distrust her, she doesn't seem to be directly responsible for the accident that led to it, nor does it appear that she had a hand in why Koichi herself ended up the way she did. However, I do want to point out real quick that Seiga does have the capability of lying to Yoshika. She herself describes the organization's actions as cruel and inhumane in her own records, but then after reclaiming the data in the park lab, she goes and tells Yoshika the things we were doing weren't evil. I'm not putting out a conspiracy theory about Seiga being the real mastermind here or anything, but it's just something to keep in mind. Okay, so I think most of us can agree that Seiga herself didn't cause the incident, but the nature of the incident itself raises some questions on its own. Koichi breaks out, then an emergency is declared and all labs are frozen. That's what happened, right? But things don't quite line up. For one, even though the test subjects in the northern lab are known to kill people if they mess up while caring for them, that doesn't really explain the stray corpse lying in the hallway with its face torn off. We know that the labs must have been frozen really quickly after the emergency because Seiga writes about not being able to return. It seems that the last time she saw Yoshika was right before the incident, otherwise we probably would have seen her right otherwise. Heck, she probably would have tried to sneak her out of there if given the chance. Assuming that Yoshika woke up relatively shortly after the labs began to unthaw, which seems to be the case judging from the droplets of water we can hear in the ambience that plays in the northern lab up until the point where we find the first corpse. That corpse must have been here since before the freezing happened. To clarify, the city itself wasn't put into a state of emergency after Koichi's breakout, only the secret labs were immediately affected by this. It's a given that there'd be bodies all over in the lab where Koichi broke out from, and of course, the clinic has its own threat that would have killed people, namely the doctor's pet, but I don't think we have much info about why this stray body is where it is in the northern lab. something else about the game's timeline is a little concerning too. Going off Seiga's words that the lab should only be able to stay frozen for a month or two, and her informing Yoshika after leaving the clinic that it's been over a month since the incident occurred, we can surmise that it's probably been between 1 and 2 months since Koishi's breakout. Let's talk about the dates shown in the game for a bit. The last day crossed out on the calendar in the room we start in is July 9th. If the labs were indeed frozen the day of the incident like we have evidence supporting, then the incident most likely took place on July 9th. The dates in the journal belonging to the dead reporter in the woods are the days following this one, so it seems he came here immediately after the incident, then got done in by the monsters. His first direct mention of monsters is on July 12th, and I think this may be the only dated record we have of a monster attack. Past this though, we have plenty of dated records around the game pertaining to viruses. Starting all the way back in March, the clinic's doctor attempts to administer a work-in-progress vaccine to a quote-unquote infected test subject, but it fails to work. This can't possibly be March of the year after the incident because that would place it an entire 8 months later. 1 month after that in April, a successful vaccine is completed. That's all well and good, but then we fast forward to June, and suddenly the school's students rapidly begin to get sick. Then the incident itself takes place next month in July. These events might sound easy to understand at first, but there are some oddities here and there. First of all, what is this vaccine even for? The first mention of it is way back in March, a whole 4 months before the incident takes place. There's definitely no virus spreading around in the city yet, so whatever this is, it seems to be something contained in, and likely developed in, the labs themselves. We know that the organization's main focus is to create weapons, and while it may appear at first glance that these weapons are just the experiments like the ones we see in the Northern Lab as well as Koishi, I don't think that's the case. It seems clear to me that the lab has developed the virus to turn people into monsters that they're trying to learn how to control as weapons, and that before they're ready to start utilizing said virus properly, they want to develop a vaccine, presumably for further control over their subjects as well as in case anything goes wrong. I think the humans we see moving around under sheets at the Northern Lab were humans injected with the virus that have turned into monsters. The same likely applies to the shapes that we see in the clinic's morgue too. However, with the morgue, it's also possible that this is related to something that the doctor was doing. It's a little unclear how long it takes for the virus to incubate to the point where you turn into a monster, but the rough timeline seems to be that you lose your mental faculties about 3 days after infection. The reporter in the woods is what I'm using for reference for this, of course, and then die an unclear amount of time after that, and then after another unclear period of time, your body turns into that of a monster. This, of course, is assuming that the virus we see prior to the incident is the same one as the virus that we see after the incident, but I think it is. I think that the symptoms just vary depending on how you catch it. If it ends up in your bloodstream due to a wound, you'll experience an intense burning sensation like what happened to the guy we borrowed the car from. However, perhaps catching it through the air results in itchiness and dizziness instead. I'm convinced that the monsters we encounter in the school used to be children. They're notably the only ones in the game that leave after being shown force, and I think that's meant to be a clue that they're different. Plus, if we were talking about 2 different viruses here, the vaccine we find wouldn't be very useful at all. It was finished before the incident took place after all. I'm almost certain that the city's residents are too far gone to save with a vaccine. They've already died and come back as monsters after all. But when it comes time to reclaim the city, it'll be essential in keeping everyone safe from monster attacks and airborne infections. This leaves just one more hole in the timeline that I'd like to try to resolve. The incident takes place in July, but the school begins getting infected in June. We were initially led to think that the virus was spread as a result of Koishi breaking out of Lab 4, but this can no longer be the case, though her escape clearly exacerbated the situation. I'd like to put out the theory that due to some sort of error in the organization's part, the virus became airborne in June. It's even possible that the reason Koishi managed to break out of Lab number 4's normally tight security is due to the virus having become airborne like this. We don't ever see any researchers wearing masks though, so I'm thinking this was some sort of accident. One theory I'd like to nip in the bud that people might wonder about is regarding the identity of the caller that we hear in the bad end. One might assume that since we don't see her in the story directly, that this is Koishi's sister, Satori, since we know she's responsible for how Koishi ended up. However, even though the speaker does use the same pronoun as Satori does, watashi, a gender-neutral one, their manner of speech is absolutely nothing like hers. Unless Satori, and Satori only, talks totally different in this game, it's almost certainly not her on the other end of the line. I'd like to propose a theoretical timeline leading to the events of the game, using the info we've put together. Seiga begins working for the organization some number of years before the incident. At one point, she's transferred to a different task than whatever she was doing before. This task is to develop a resurrection virus. At one point, she's brought a dead yet otherwise undeformed girl named Yoshika to use as a test subject, potentially by some sort of mistake. She puts her in cryostasis, then thaws her after completing the virus, then resurrects her. At one point, unrelated to Seiga's role in the plot, the organization develops a virus that kills humans and turns them into monsters. This virus seems to be under tight control for the time being and is confined to the facilities where it's being tested extensively. Sometime later, the clinic's doctor/director is assigned the task of developing a vaccine for the virus the organization has made. In April of the year when the game's events take place, he successfully creates one, but keeps it a secret in order to get more research funding. He uses this money to continue to work on his pet, a secret project he's created that's able to imitate other life forms given the right circumstances. It's implied that he tried creating this pet a few times before settling and using Yagokoro Erin, a recently hired part-time nurse, as its base. There were several attempts before this, and some were labeled as successes, but it's unclear what happened with him afterwards. It's possible that he created this pet by modifying a sample with virus provided to him by the organization that he was meant to make a vaccine for. In June, students at the local elementary school begin catching a virus that makes them itchy and dizzy. It appears that for some reason, the previously carefully controlled virus is now airborne and being spread throughout the city. No researchers are ever seen wearing masks, so perhaps this airborne variant was created as some sort of unforeseen accident. In July, Meiji Koishi, who was brought to the facility and willingly experimented on by her own sister, breaks out of her containment in lab number 4, triggering an emergency freeze of all labs. This freeze leaves Seiga unable to retrieve Yoshika. Sometime after the incident has occurred, Seiga sends a man to the northern lab to check up on Yoshika, for whatever reason, without giving him a mask or gun. He's killed by a monster and infected with the virus. Approximately 1 to 2 months after the incident, the labs begin to unfreeze and Yoshika wakes up. She leaves the northern lab and finds the communicator left behind by Seiga's comrade, which she uses to get in contact with her and kickstart the events of the game. Okay. There are definitely some weird bits here and there, but I think this timeline is a somewhat solid guess considering the spotty info that we have available. If only we had access to the lost data from Seiga's records, we'd probably have a much more clear picture of the incident itself, but alas, we're withheld that information by design. Okay, so I may have spent a lot longer talking about the game's plot than I originally intended. I was able to piece together more than I expected to be able to, but also found a couple potential holes. However, it's worth considering that they might only look like plot holes because we don't have the full story, so I don't want to hold them against the game. If anything, it's little conflicting bits of info like that help to make interesting stories. We wouldn't have as many people talking about historical events, like the moon landing or Van Gogh's death, if there weren't little oddities here and there that led to discussions about alternative explanations, aka conspiracy theories. Let's talk about my thoughts on the game itself now. Now, I'm not traditionally a big fan of the horror genre at all. I'll dabble in stuff like Yuminiki, sure, but that's kind of its own surreal ambient kind of horror. When it comes to popular series like Resident Evil and Silent Hill, I've never played a single one, and I have absolutely no interest in ever doing so. That being said, I still enjoyed this game, and I think it succeeded in doing what it set out to do. Its fragmented yet compelling plot was fun to piece together, and it had some really unique interpretations of Touhou characters in an unfamiliar setting. It was spooky, but not so scary that I found it unpleasant at any point. That being said, I do think that there's some missed potential here. The gunplay itself is very basic. I think the place in the story where the gun gets introduced is just fine, since otherwise the game would have to explain why it doesn't work on Erin before she transforms. The eyeball monster also acts as a fine tutorial, and I think it's better off being a tutorial than making you fight a boss before getting a chance to practice with the gun. The gun is admittedly a little bit clunky though, but this is overworld combat in an RPG Maker game, so that's to be expected. However, I would have liked to see a bit more variety in the Koichi battle, and more surprise encounters like the one at the school, just to keep the player on their toes. More puzzles would have been nice to have too. And furthermore, I think that maybe moving the first puzzle just a little later into the game would have been a good idea. Trapping a first-time player in a room at the start of the game, and requiring them to check a bunch of stuff and solve a puzzle before they can leave and experience the horror doesn't give at all an accurate depiction of what the game is actually like. I'm also not fond of the idea of Seiga's login info not being available anywhere when you need it for the true end. Many players won't think to write it down and will have to either look it up online or replay through the whole game again. And yes, while the game is admittedly quite short, I still prefer for it to be findable somewhere. Maybe adding it to your key items as a note would have worked. Either that, or maybe going back to the park lab to get it somehow. But in my opinion, once I've realized that I need the same administrator login from earlier in the game, I've already solved the puzzle and shouldn't have to replay the game because I wasn't a creep that wrote down my friend's password. Lastly, I would have loved to see more unique experiments like the ones that we saw up in the northern lab. While it's true that we encounter another one in the lab underneath the park, we don't get a cool bio in it like we did for number 14 and number 31. I'm a big sucker for SCPs though, so this is more of a personal bias than a valid criticism. Also, this isn't a criticism whatsoever, but I don't know where else to show it off, so here's a funny bug I found. So during the scare in the school bathroom, what triggers the monster's appearance is opening the door out of the room after opening the last stall. But if you open the exit door first, the monster won't spawn when you go to leave. Then you can go back in and open the stall, then try to leave, causing the monster to appear out of nowhere in the light. This is just due to how the game's flags work, I'm pretty sure. You can't actually take out your gun to shoot it, by the way. It's just flat out disabled during this scene, even without any bugs. Okay, silly bug showcase over. I think that Rigid Memory is pretty solidly made outside of this. A full playthrough of Rigid Memory takes 2 hours or so, plus maybe an extra half an hour to an hour to get the true end. It comes at a cheap 800 yen, which at the time of this video, Google tells me converts to $5.36 USD. I think that's a pretty good deal for what it gives you, assuming you know enough Japanese to be able to play it. If you can't, well, you might be able to get by with a translation app. but you'll definitely miss out on some of the flavor. And that was Rigid Memory. I hope you enjoyed the experience. Thanks for watching until the end. I already plugged my Patreon and Ko-fi near the start of the video, so I'll spare you doing that again, but I'd still like to take a moment to thank my Patreon supporters who are as follows: Erite, Andrew FM, Awkward Burb, Bertato, Vicious, Bushas, Sinon's on Roll, Dragon Realms, Frogcrin, Hudrin, Ice Manual, Machina Icy Terror, Carbonic aka Quinn, Kojinue, Jabro Nichan, Laplace, Plutonium Pie, Skeleton, Tripper, and Zakkun. I'm writing this before beginning recording or editing, so I'm unsure just what kind of hell awaits me, but boy was this script a nightmare to write. Future but also present Hakanai here. I can verify that the recording section can indeed suck my ass. Just yesterday, I sat down to wrap it up, but had the bright idea of trying to sum up the game's story. If you saw that section, you know just how that turned out. That section alone took about 3 hours to write, and even after all that, it's not really as organized as it could be. But I could say the same about the game's plot, so I'll be leaving it as is. I don't claim to have any sort of degree in RPG Maker plot studies. It's been quite a while since I've done a video. I'll be honest, I do enjoy doing them, but I dread the recording process so much that it can sometimes put me off doing new ones. Depending on how things go, I may have a lot of time before I have much else to work on, so I might fill the time with another video while I wait. I've got so many open projects right now that I'm not sure it's a good idea to start more. Though saying that, as of writing this, I put up multiple contacts in the past week I'm still waiting to get a response back on, so we'll have to see what happens. This has been Hakanai Blue, and I guess I don't really have too much to say, but if this comes out on Halloween like I'm hoping it does, that means Touhou Soushinengi Genius of Sephiroth released on Steam today, so go buy it. See ya.